Hi, everybody. Just bring you a update from Jerusalem area. Yeah, I just got to thinking. It's been a couple days since I've reported, and I'm Peter. I've always been kind of a quick reaction, quick to speak, quick to act kind of guy, and the things that I'm processing right now, I have to share it because they're just burning in my heart. I think I have a revelation, but it's going to take a little bit to explain because I have to go back to before Jesus went to the cross and when he died and all that happened. We were gathering together, and Jesus was asking us who we believe he is. And I said, I believe you are the Son of God, Jesus, the Christ, the Son of God, or the Messiah. And he's like, on this rock I will build my church. On this confession of faith, I'm going to build my church. And it made me feel good. I was like, yes, Jesus is happy with me. And then right after that, he got to talking about that we as his disciples, his followers, we would all leave him and desert him. And I said, no, I'm not going to desert you. I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to be right next to you. I will fight for you. I'm all in. And he said, get thee behind me, Satan. And man, I can't say that I felt hurt or deeply wounded, but it did something to me. It made me question, like, Jesus, I believe in you, and I want to make you happy, and I want to prove that I'm committed, and so it got messing with my head, and I didn't even realize it at the time. But now here we are, a week later, and I'm thinking of these things because he's done something to me that I want to share with you in a minute that made me have a kind of a revelation of what maybe I'm missing. So going from that moment and then fast forwarding to the night that he was taken, and I'm there by the fire, and this woman recognizes me and says, aren't you the one with Jesus? And I said, no, I don't know who he is. And 3 times I denied Jesus, 3 times. And then he looks at me, and as he looked at me, I felt such shame and guilt. And so I left, and I wept, and I was emotional, and shame just washed over me because I failed. I felt like I failed Jesus in the middle of his most difficult time. I failed him. And so this has been kind of hanging with me, kind of subconsciously, kind of in behind the scenes, this sense of shame and guilt. And then, as I watch John, he seems always to be comfortable around Jesus. He's not trying to prove anything. He's he's comfortable to be next to Jesus. And, he's never the first one to speak up and show how eager he is, but he's just kind of there in his presence and is content just to sit with Jesus and be a part of it all. And then coming to when Jesus was crucified, in the garden, we all kind of ran out, but John was the first one that left the hiding places where we were there in the garden. And he was the first one to kind of go into where Jesus was in the courtyard of the high priest. And he got me in, in the first place. And so John just seemed to be the one that was willing to risk his life or put himself out there for Jesus without any fanfare, without any kind of I want to prove myself kind of thing. He just wanted to be close to Jesus. And then when Jesus was crucified, we know that John was there. He was there with Mary, the mother of Jesus. And Jesus, I wasn't close enough to hear anything, but I know that there was some exchange there with Jesus and John and Mary. And so now we've just got back from fishing there. Last time I reported, we were out fishing, and Jesus calls us from the shore, and I go out there. I jump out of the boat into the water, and I go up on the shore, and we had breakfast. We ate with them, and everything was cool. And then he kind of, we're hanging out afterwards. He comes walking over to me because I'm just kind of, again, it's this subconscious thing where I feel this shame and guilt and not really aware of it. And I'm kind of sitting in the background, and Jesus kind of wanders over to me. He says, Peter, do you like me? And I says, Jesus, of course I like you. And then he says, feed my sheep. And then he said it again. He says, Peter, do you really appreciate me? And I'm like, Jesus, of course I appreciate it. Of course I like you. Of course. And he said, feed my sheep. And then he put his arm around my shoulder, and he kind of lowered his voice a bit, and in only his way, he said, Peter, do you love me? And I said, Jesus, I felt this shame, guilt, and I'm hurt. And now he's questioned me a third time. Yes, Jesus, I love you. And he said, feed my sheep. And then out of that shame and guilt came this question, and I don't know why I asked, but I pointed to John and I said, what about him? Because Jesus had made this comment that John would maybe not suffer the things I was going to suffer. For example, when I said, I love you, Jesus, he said, well, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and you went where you wanted to go and you took care of yourself. But in the days to come, somebody else is going to dress you and they're going to lead you where you don't want to go. And so in that moment of conversation, I turned and I said, well, what about John? And he says, why do you worry about John? If I want him to stay and live, what is that to you? You follow me. And I'm in the moment again, I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. I was like, what are you trying to say? That he gets something different? But now 2 days later, as I'm processing all these things Jesus was talking about in that moment, this is kind of what I'm thinking. This whole idea that Jesus loves us. He loved us so much that he went to the cross. That was actually a demonstration. And then John and his reaction and the way he walked with Jesus, the way he was tight, kind of close to him, more so than some of the rest of us. And then I had this revelation. This thing came into my head. It's because John knows how much he is loved. And I thought, okay, so I know Jesus loves me. I see it and I recognize it, but because of the guilt and shame of my failure, I don't feel like I can make him happy or that he's pleased with me. I feel like he's not pleased, and yet I'm the one that denied him. In all that trying to prove and trying to be out there and saying, yeah, Jesus, I'm going to be with you. And then in the garden, I pulled my sword and he rebukes me. And all the while, I'm missing what he's trying to show me. He's trying to show me that, Peter, you don't need to prove yourself to me. I love you just the way you are. You don't have to try to prove your love to me. I want you to understand that you are loved. And so those three questions, do you love me? And do you love me? Do you love me? It's almost like he was trying to redeem in me this, to get me to confess that I love him so that I could receive the love that he has for me, because I'm doubting, right? I'm doubting that he's happy and he's pleased and just that he's happy with me. And so this is the thing. This is what I think is this new thing that we have with this new movement, or this new time that we have after we've seen all the things that we've seen, that Jesus is trying to demonstrate to us that we are loved just as we are, with my failure, with my personality, everything about me, that he loves me just the way he made me, and he wants me to understand and to believe that I am loved, so that I don't have to be totally consumed with trying to prove to him that I love him. And so this is kind of settling into my spirit, into my heart, and I'm wondering, okay, how now do I move forward with this new revelation, and how does this impact me moving forward? And I think it's this. I think it's not how much I love him, but it's how much I understand that he loves me. Because if I understand that he loves me, then my natural response will be to want to follow him and want to respond to what he wants me to do. And I just encourage you out there who have been following kind of my story, I want you to share this with your friends. I want you to just spread the good news that it is no longer about us performing in order to please God, but God has demonstrated that he wants to love us and that he has loved us, and he demonstrated that in his son Jesus, who came and walked with us, and he called us to follow him, and then he went to the cross, and according to what he spoke, that he He paid for all of my failures. He paid for my sin. He paid for my shame and my guilt. And so now I can receive his love without this hesitation of, well, I don't know if you're happy. I don't know if you really like me. I don't know if I'm good enough. Now it's like he's taken away all of those requirements that were there in my mind and in my subconscious, kind of the way I felt about myself. You could say it was my identity, that I had to do something to make God happy with me. And now he's taken all that and he's nailed it to the cross, and he said, I have taken all of your shame and all of your guilt and all of your debt upon myself, and now receive my love. This is like crazy amazing. Like I'm just starting to understand and trying to process that this is actually what Jesus has done for me. This is how much he loves me, is that he was willing to take my guilt, the things that I am responsible for, he took upon himself, so that now I can come into his presence in confidence, knowing that it's not my behavior, it's not my good deeds, it's not my bad deeds, but it's me. It's just, he loves Peter. He loves Peter for who he is, who he's made me to be. And I don't have to perform. I don't have to try to prove anything anymore. And I think that's what happened with John. John, the first time he looked in the grave, he said, I believe he's alive. Well, John went into where the trial was, where the chief priests were. He was at the cross. What caused John to be so confident and so willing to put himself out there and be close to Jesus? I think it was because he knew how much Jesus loved him, and it caused him to have the confidence to come with Jesus wherever Jesus was going, and he was willing to lay down his life. And maybe that's why I wasn't able to, because I wasn't sure that I was good enough. And so that's what my hindrance was. It wasn't that Jesus didn't love me. No, he demonstrated his love to me by calling me to follow him, by teaching and involving me in things in his life. And he did everything to show me this love, but I wasn't able to receive. And so I just want to say this to you. You are loved. Not because you're good, not because you're something special. And if you feel like you're not loved, it's not because of your deeds, it's because of your own idea of what you expect God expects of you. I mean, if you believe that God expects you to be perfect before he's loving you, well, then it's going to be pretty hard for you to come into a relationship with him that is intimate and personal, because now you feel like you have to perform, and if you don't, well, then he's going to withdraw. God will not withdraw. He will never leave you. He will draw near to you. Jesus drew near. He came from heaven and he came down and he became a man and he walked with us. And he went to the cross to demonstrate his love. And then I go back to the things that he talked about, his whole idea of, I give you a new command. This new command, he lived it for us. And we missed most of it. In the moment we missed it. Now looking back, I think we'll understand so much more as we process all of the good things that he's done. But I think the biggest thing, this new command, love others as I have loved you. Well, how did he love us? Well, he laid his life down. He laid everything down. And he receives us with all of our baggage, with all of our successes and failures, our personalities, our quirks, and he says, I love you. You are accepted. So guys and gals, I encourage you, share this with your friends, share it out there, get the word out. You are loved. Jesus loves you. There's nothing that you can do to make him love you more, and there's nothing that you can do to make him love you less. He loves you just the way you are, because you are made in his image. God bless you. We'll talk to you soon.